Difficulties in your life do not come to destroy you, but to help you realize your hidden potential and power. Let the difficulties know that you too are difficult. A warm welcome to one and all present here. I, Rotaract Vijayalakshmi Bansi, Community Service Director of Rotaract Club of Venugram Belgaum, feel privileged to welcome the speaker, Sir Giriraj Heda, and everyone present here. Now I request Rotaractor Arpana Patil to introduce the speaker, Sir Giriraj Heda.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
I am Rotaract Arpana Patil. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker, Giriraj Heda. He has finished his schooling from MV Herwadkar and GSS PU College, Belgaum. He has completed his graduation as a mechanical engineer from NIT Karnataka, Surathkal. He is currently working as a drilling and subsurface engineer at ExxonMobil. It's a Fortune top 3 company. He joined ExxonMobil as a campus hire in 2018. For the past 2 years, he has supported business units at Russia, Canada, USA, Guyana, and other global teams. His role primarily involves providing drilling engineering solutions and technical support to their systems. Recently, he had an opportunity to be an interviewer and was involved with the recruitment for NIT Varangal. He is here to share with us his experience and knowledge around how to approach an interview, answer the questions, and how to present our profiles. I request Giriraj Heda to give a session on the same, and I also request you all to take the inputs regarding the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arpana. Thanks to the RCV team for having me here. It's a great honor and pleasure. I'm really glad that I'm getting this opportunity to share my experience. I have prepared just a brief content which will help us, navigate this session. So I'll just share that with you all. Yeah, so let me know whenever you can see, just give me a thumbs up. Thank you. So I know, thanks for that great introduction. But my intent for this talk today was to just share some of my experiences that I've had during the 2 years of my career till now. Uh, I've got. I'm really grateful to have had opportunities where I was able to uh, be a part of an interview process where for NIT Warangal just very recently. So that gave me a view on what happens on the other side of the table, right? So these are just some tips, and these are really broad tips. They'll help you navigate how and what happens in a recruitment process, or basically navigate you to build your profile. So with that in mind, let's kick this session ahead. And if you guys have any questions in between, feel free to pause me, ask your questions. I think we also have like some time later scheduled for just a question and answer session. But in it, like in this whole content, make like if you have any questions, feel free to pause and we can discuss. Make it more like a discussion. I think that's where I can provide you more inputs. But in and all, let's go ahead. So the key agenda here really is I want to talk and share a few of my learnings on mindset. So I'll tell you what that is and why is that really important before we even tackle this whole corporate world or a professional setup and tackle on building a profile. So mindset, then we'll go ahead and understand self-evaluation. Basically, before you apply for any role, you need to know yourself very well. So that's what I'm going to talk about and spend just a couple of moments there. And then we'll go into the groove of it. That's basically how do you build your resume? What are the tips there? What is not supposed to be done while writing a resume? And then we'll talk about how to approach an interview. I'll just share a few things that I kind of observed when I was taking interviews for the folks there on what shouldn't be done. Like what are those mistakes that probably do not look good, and they will just give you an insight on just being conscious about them. Then we'll go into something called as the star method. I really like this. So it this is just a technique on answering questions in an interview, on answering some of these situational questions in an interview, and then we'll just go in a closing, and I'll just briefly talk about some key high level points that you might want to take away from this. Uh, you know, as I said, feel free to stop me in between. So let's go ahead. Mindset, right? Now, there is this book by Dr. Carroll who talks about like two mindsets that people usually have. One is the fixed mindset and one is a growth mindset. Now, I'll come to the point of why it is important, but let's to just give a context of how the corporate world functions and what is it that makes people successful. So if you look at us, right, we are in a society where a lot of times uh, we we do not ask questions. We don't question the existing systems. We do not question why things happen the way they do. We have a very narrow approach to the way we work. For example, this is a fixed path that people follow. At least majority of us follow. That is, we do our education. If the marks are good, we go for a science stream. If we do that better, we go for an engineering, and then that's how it follows. And there's nothing right or wrong here. But the key thing that I want to talk about here is like it's a very fixed mindset. Like if you look at it, we are following a very narrow path that has already been set. Um, we have repeatedly been told, but we never question neither ourselves or nor the people who's telling us as to why am I doing this. What that leads to is a lot of frustration at the end. Like we just end up frustrated, and so we never grow in something like that. Like a lot of us keep complaining that the job isn't good. A lot of us keep talking that you're not learning anything. But like, can you change that? Can you change that behavior, and can you shift to something called as a growth mindset? Now, what growth mindset talks about is you can learn things that you haven't been exposed to before. You can adapt yourself to the situation, and you can try new things. You like you take feedback in a very constructive way. So that's a growth mindset. Like you question the way things are done. I mean, and also be humble with that. So essentially, why is growth mindset important? Because whenever you approach for a job, whenever you approach for an interview, and even later after you join a company, it's really important for you to demonstrate that you can learn different things. We currently live in an era where following a set path is not the most optimized option. We need to try different things. Like the internet has brought a lot of revolution to the way things work. Like there's a lot of competition out there. People are just doing they're learning every day. They're just doing all the different things. So my intent from this summary is if you have taken, so for example, commerce, or if you taken, for example, just say science. Do not think that business is not important. Do not think that understanding finance isn't important. If you're a software engineer currently working, uh, like you need to also know how that particular program is helping people and what is it doing. Just knowing and being in that restricted worldview will limit the opportunities that you have, and will also limit your understanding of the world. Like at the end, what are we striving for? We are striving to understand ourselves better and trying to find better opportunities. So cultivate a growth mindset. You can read this book, Mindset. It's a really wonderful book. It talks about the exact things that I'm talking here. So try to have this go to learn attitude. Just learn anything, everything, whatever you like. Doesn't matter if you belong to that particular stream or not. And there is enough material available in the internet. You just need the motivation to kind of search and do that. So that's the whole thing about mindset. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about how do you prepare yourself, like how do you self evaluate. So let's think about this, right? I'm assuming maybe people would like to apply for new roles, or maybe people would like to they're just graduating, or they want to start up, like either want to start up or they want to like work in a company. Both are great options. Like there's nothing right or wrong. You need to do what's right for you. You need to be practical in your approach. Uh, A lot of people say follow your passion. uh, I would just say be practical wherever possible, follow your interests. If not, then try to develop yourself so that you reach a place where you can follow your interest. But the key is never stop learning. So when I say preparing your profile, right? Like now there's a role that you want to apply for. But even before applying, even before doing all that process, you need to do this. This is called as self-evaluation. Now, to be honest, in my 4 years of engineering, uh, I learned a lot of engineering, but never really learned a lot on how to apply, or how to approach a company, etc. This is something that you probably learn from experience, or you probably learn from someone who has already done something. So uh, what you should do is you need to understand what are your core skills, and do they match with the particular job that you want to apply for. For example, if you're looking for a job that requires preparing a profile section, we were talking about like why it's important to develop your core skills. The example that I was trying to highlight was the sales and marketing role, right? Like you need to develop those base skills that are required for the role, and then you can focus on the other things that's necessary. So understand what are those key strengths that you have, and of course, like that Venn diagram there, you can see, right? There's skills, there's interest, and there's opportunity, and wherever all those three intersect, that's your area that you need to focus on. So and then you kind of like understand how do you structure your profile. Like, so for example, if you're just newly graduated, you need to also demonstrate areas like extracurricular activities are very important, when it comes to like demonstrating leadership behaviors, or demonstrating extra like your non-technical skills, which are by default are needed in every role that we do. Even if you are a software engineer, you need effective collaboration skills, you need effective communication skills. So those are some areas that you can highlight. So you need to structure your profile in that sense. So start documenting those points. Now, for example, you guys organize these events, and you do a lot of social work. So you need to keep a tab on what your role is and how you have made an impact. Like a lot of times what we forget is that these are small things, but like they matter a lot when it comes to applying, and when it comes to demonstrating uh, the skills that you possess inherently. And once you do that, you can self evaluate yourself against the position you're applying for. For example, basically understand what that job role demands from you. You need to understand what the employer is looking for. So that's the area where a lot of people kind of do not focus on. Like they do not know what the role requires. A lot of time when we apply, we just think, hey, let's apply in bulk. Like let's do like apply for 10 positions, whichever happens, and that doesn't work a lot of times, because some rules are very specific. You need to have a personal approach. It's just like forming any friendship, right? You cannot have the same approach with every friend or every relationship that you want to form with the other person. You need to have a very personal approach to these things, and they need to kind of match with your personality. So that's the whole key message here. You need to understand your core attributes, key skills, and interests, and then prepare yourself for that next step. And that next step is basically creating a document that is in at the if you think about it, resumes are nothing but sales brochures. We are basically trying to sell our skills. We are trying to sell our brand as like a person to employers, and trying to create an impression. So that's where the whole documenting and resume creating comes in place. Now, what I've seen a lot of times that people miss, like even in my engineering days, I remember a lot of us didn't know how to write a resume. Like it might seem very trivial, but it's surprising that when you start actually writing things up, it's so difficult to find the right words, find to kind of create a concise information. And like it takes time. It definitely takes a lot of time to create a resume that you can feel, yeah, this is the one you want it. So you need to do it over time. Like it, there will be multiple iterations. So what I've kind of put down here is just some tips, but overall I'll tell you what the process for a resume will look like. Let's not focus on these points for now. I'll just talk about like how do you start building your resume if you don't have one right now. So first of all, as I said, when you do that self-evaluation, right, that will give you some points on what your key strengths. Of course, it'll also tell you what are weaknesses. Remember and note that down. There's no need for you to document them up in your resume, but make sure you note those weaknesses down, and they need to be genuine weaknesses. For example, one of my weaknesses is like effective decision making. I get really confused when I have a lot of inputs and I need to make a decision out of that. So something which are genuine, don't have any cliche like I'm very detail oriented, which you find on the internet. That doesn't work. So when you start joining, like writing these points up, you will have to come up with drafts, multiple drafts. But the first thing is try to write as much as possible in a page. Like even if you think that information is trivial about you, but just write it down. Was the first thing is to collect information. And so I mean, like I'm just assuming, right? So if you are from a commerce background, you have done your bachelor's in commerce, you have been in this club, and you've been organizing activities. So you have done a lot of things. It's not just a resume is not just about marks, right? It's not about how many percentage you got in your XX standards and all that, but it's about demonstrating what are the different things that you've done in life, and kind of building your key strengths. So document all that up. Once you do that, the next step is kind of channelizing them, or concising, putting all of those documents all of those points in a concise format, and then understanding which ones are very important for you. So that creates a first draft. So when you do that first draft, go browse the internet, you'll find a lot of formats available. So you can use already existing templates. I think that's the best way to do it. Never reinvent the wheel, because that just takes a lot of time. So go look at some already existing templates and take something that fits your personality. Like if you're very creative, you might want to have a very colorful resume. It's still okay. Like if you're applying for a creative job, if you're very professional, you can just have a very classy usual resume, and that's okay. But get a template from online. I usually use so there's this website called as overleaf.com, or shared latex. So those are basically latex based resume. It's a latex is just a it's just like any other language. It's a think about HTML, right? It's a language which helps you create web pages. So this is a language which helps you create resume. It's not very complicated. I like to use that because it helps me structure my resume in a very good way, and it helps me format it in a very good way. So that's your next step. You need to format your resume, and you need to select a good template which suits your profile and which suits the job that you want to apply for. So once you do that, your next step is always to like do iterations. You need to keep iterating. Now in this case, you so I've seen there are a couple of resumes, like when I was doing this interview process, spelling mistakes. People don't like spelling mistakes. Basically, that demonstrates that you aren't very keen on the first document that you're submitting to your employer. Like it doesn't demonstrate that you can look at details, and it just gives a very bad impression. So do a spell check. Uh, always like make sure that the grammar is right and all that, and focus on quality and not on quantity. uh, it's not important how long your resume is. you know what matters is how crisp, how concise. So imagine if you are an employer and trying to like look at 50 or 100 resumes, you will not focus on all the pages that there in the resume. So your first job is to create something that's very concise, like one page or maximum 2 pages. Never go beyond that, never, because no one is going to read all that. And you need to form something that is, catches the attention easily. Basically, like, so that's why you need to focus on the important achievements in the order of priority. Like the biggest achievements comes first, so that, like, it's just like newspapers, right? When you read the newspaper, the first page is always like the big thing. So something similar, like that's the whole mindset that you need to approach the resume building for. So for example, your biggest achievement could be you organized an event which was attended by 500 plus people, garnered so many good likes on a social media, etc., etc. That can be something that can come first in line, and then you can focus and, take your achievements in the order of priority. The other thing is, a lot of resumes that I've seen, where people lie, like in the extracurricular activities or etc. Like, the other things that they have done in their college, etc. Is like, being a part of a club, or being, like occupying a so and so position. For example, someone was like uh, the captain for a team, etc. What matters is not the position. What matters is what you did with that position. uh, like, there are like a lot of people who do similar things like us, you know who occupy like similar posts. Like, there will be another club which has presidents, secretaries, and what will separate you and the rest is if you demonstrate what you did with the role and the responsibility that you had. So focus on the actions that you took, rather than just telling the world that you were a volunteer, or you were a president for X and X club. So that's why it's important that you use some these so-called, action verbs or adjectives, like, which reinforce the fact that you've done something really great. For example, like, I have highlighted just a few words here, like, consistently delivering this performance, or organize these effectively, managed a team of 40, led, which kind of add a lot of weight to that position now. So that is important. You need to keep doing that. uh, don't focus on just saying that I was a volunteer or I was a president. Okay, so that's the first, like, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people do. uh, the other thing is, like, use LinkedIn. I think that's a very effective way to form professional connections. Keep your LinkedIn updated, because a lot of recruiters and employers, they do look at LinkedIn, and you can use that as a platform to get an opportunity, or at least land an interview. The worst case, we are living in a very globalized and, a world driven by internet, so make full use of that. But the fundamentals stay the same. It's about building an image. It's about creating a sales pitch. It's literally, you're trying to sell your skills and services to the employer. It's about efficiently drafting a message, right? So these are the fundamentals that have will always stay the same, be it your LinkedIn kind of profile, or another resume as a draft. The other thing is, like, so
Yeah.
distributed. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. You're audible now.
Okay, sorry. I don't know, like, how much did I cover, but okay, I'll just kind of repeat. So I was talking about some examples that we can kind of just go through. So the first one was on, like, how specifics can add a lot of value to the statement that you're putting in a resume. So for example, like, the first sentence says distributed new desktop computers. Second one says distributed 342 new desktop computers within scheduled time frame. And the third one says completed distribution of 342 new desktop computers, 5 business days ahead of project schedule with no decline in base business on-site support. Now, if you had three candidates writing these three separate, things in their resumes, the most impressive one will be the one which has a lot of these specific, like the last one, which I just repeated. So the what I'm trying to tell here is you need to mention the specifics which matter a lot. Like just saying that, for example, let's say you led a team, uh, and it doesn't make any sense. Like you need to add more weight. You need to tell what happened. Like you led a team of 30 people and helped and managed efficiently and created so and so impact. That is what matters. So that's how you need to write these words, and it will happen. Like it will take time for you to structure them, but the key idea, and I'll tell you how to kind of do that. Like there's this technique which I was talking about in the agenda. That's the star technique, which will help you to kind of write some of these things. So I can tell you that. uh, the other example is on the bad example and good example. uh, so just to highlight, like if you see the top one on the bad example, it says excellent communication and organization skills or ability to get along with wide range of people. So it's very vague, basically. And this is like I've actually seen a lot of people write this in their resume. Strong work ethic and very responsible. Those are very vague statements. Make sure you do not write very vague statements, because it becomes very difficult for the interview to trust vague vague data. Like how will you trust someone writing, just saying excellent communication or etc. What you need to do instead is provide them the specifics. Like how do you demonstrate that you're excellent at communication? You say you participated in like whatever, you gave two webinars, and that's how you demonstrated, or you did something that kind of backs that up. So validating that skill is important, and that's why specifics are very important. So that's the whole gist of how do you structure. And like at the end of the day, it's still it's a document. And do not fuss about it a lot, but make sure you keep some of these key things in mind. So with that, let's look at interview process and like how to ace it. Like I'm saying how to ace it, but there are it's just really like what are the things that matter to an interviewer. Like uh, when when we take interviews, what is it that we look at in a person? So very important is like you need. So interview is a place where you're actually it's the first formal encounter with the role that you want to do, or it's the first formal encounter with your employer or the organization that you want to work with, right? So what so the first impressions and small talks, they matter a lot, right? Like the body language, the way you talk, it matters a lot. So make sure you practice these things. And when I say small talks, it basically means like the first word that you utter. Like you can't be really nervous sitting in an interview and like just doing nothing. uh, it's okay to be nervous, but don't let that overpower you. You need to be confident, radiate a lot of confidence and energy when you first talk, the first word that you utter. So small talks like just asking how are you guys or how are you doing, etc., is very important, uh, because that basically helps people like you. You need to demonstrate that you're likable. That's very important in an interview. uh, the next thing that is like when you get questions right, you need to listen to them effectively. Wait till the interviewer completes a question and then answer them. Do not be in a hurry to answer questions, because it's not really good habit to cut someone who is talking. Like pause them and just say, hey, this is the answer. No, it what it demonstrates is like you do not have the ability to listen well. Effective communication is a two-way street. You need to know when to talk, and you need to know when to listen also. So that's a very key skill. A lot of people forget that. So do not forget that. Listen clearly. And when you listen to a question, right, how do you answer the question is very important. A lot of times, when the usual question that comes up is like, tell me about yourself. And so it's a very open-ended question, right? Like you can tell anything, but like what you need to be very specific in here also. You need to tell them like specific details, like what was the education, etc. Don't just tell your whole story. Do not drag the answers, because you're just wasting the time. And like it's better not to talk anything random. Stick to what this interview is meant for. uh, ethics and integrity above anything. I'm writing this here because at least when we were taking interviews, there were a couple of questions which where we were trying to test how the integrity or the ethics of a person. So what I mean by that is like, can they do something by bending a law? Basically, can they cheat on a law, or like uh, and these are very like questions which you will not even realize that that's what the interview is trying to gauge. uh, a lot of companies kind of look at having people who are ethical, and that's really important. Like, and do not talk something that you have never done. Like, a lot of people write things in their resume which they have not done. Some people are just really good at like talking about it and they get through it, but I don't think it uh, like if it ever gets out and it's important, then you lose a lot of your credibility. So make sure you build your credibility and do not do that through a wrong path. And that's why you need to know your resume inside out. Like, if you have worked on a project, you need to know the details of that project in and out, like everything. And if you worked on a team project, make sure what the other people have done, like at least on a broad scale, so that you can talk or explain to someone, maybe in an interview or even outside, right? Like, make sure you know what you're writing in that resume. That's why the whole self evaluation is a very key step in doing all of this. And the next thing is like, you need to demonstrate your interest and enthusiasm for this role. uh, you need to show that optimism and energy. That's the most important thing. A lot of people are very nervous and they get very dull in an interview. Do not do that. It's okay to be nervous, but try to keep a calm attitude. It's okay if we like, one thing is like, we are nervous because we fear that, oh, what if we do not get. That's not the end of the road, right? Do not worry failure. Like, ultimately, look at an interview from a learning process. At the end, like, you're learning something. So for example, when I sat for Exxon Mobil's interviews, I had to there were 4 interviews literally, like, on different days. So very tiring process. It took like, the whole process was like, the results came out like 3 weeks later. But and it was definitely very, it was on my nerves, because 4 interviews and like different people interviewing you. What I told myself, and I think that's very important. Like, I believe that's the reason probably I was able to do well in those interviews, was I took that as a learning experience. I was like, even if it doesn't happen, the the whole fact that I'm able to meet such amazing industry professionals and just talk to them is a great opportunity for me. And it's enough. I'm just going to be myself and talk it out. And that really helped. So do not worry what happens. That's, you do not have like the output in your control. All you can do is work on how you kind of talk in the interview, and work some of these things out. So the key traits to demonstrate, remember, is how adaptable you are. Flexibility is very important. Like, a lot of us are very focused on doing a very focused work, right? We just want, so for example, if we are in designing, we just want this designing role. Or if we are into like finance, we really want just something that's very stuck to that core finance. And sometimes it's not possible, because there's no need for someone in that company to be take another finance position, because they might already have someone else. But that shouldn't stop you from exploring other options. It's, and imagine like, like, if you're going to work for a long, at least you'll work for at least 20-30 years. So the first role wouldn't decide, like, completely decide how your trajectory is going to be, right? So be adaptable and show them that you can do different things. A lot of people lack adaptability, and that's why the growth mindset is again very important, because the key trait is how adaptable are you and how much can you learn over time. That's, so so demonstrate that. Team player and collaboration is really important. The reason being, uh, you know in a big company, or even in a startup, for example, like, suppose you're applying to some of these hydraulics company in Belgaum. It's really important that you know how to talk to different people and coordinate different projects, communicate with them effectively. All that is really important. So demonstrate that, and that's why the extracurricular activities are really important. So where you have the opportunity to demonstrate some of these skills. And effective communication is the key of all of these things. Like effective communication involves everything, like how well you write, how well you talk, how well you listen, how well you articulate your ideas and thoughts. uh, that's really important. We have a lot of things coming in our mind when a question is popped at us. We need to, and like we need to be able to do effectively articulate a lot of these thoughts, filter them out, and tell it out in an interview. That's really important. So that's the whole gist of the interview process. And like what are the things that should be done, what are the things that shouldn't be done. Like let's focus on that. So arriving at the interview unprepared, like the interview can really make out if you're not prepared for the interview. Like if you're not looked at what the company does, for example, you do not even have the faintest idea of what they do, that just gives an impression that you're not interested, and that's the end of it. Like it's very certain that the interview won't select you. Having a sloppy appearance or a very relaxed attitude, that's really bad, because interview is a it's like a first impression that you're putting up on people, right? You need to be at your best, at the best behaviors, at your best appearance. So make sure you do that. Like don't have a very sloppy appearance and a very chill attitude. That's not even good. uh, do not use pretentious language or jargons. Talk in a simple manner. A lot of people in the thought of sounding very cool or very intelligent tend to use like different jargons, different technical terms. Like if the question is a technical one, that makes sense, but like you don't have to uh, brag about like the fact that you know some of these things, if it's not needed. So communicate in a very simple and easy to understand manner. Like people are not looking for some expert in so on. They're just looking for someone who can work and who has the energy to kind of uh, do that consistently. So that's what do not use pretentious language. uh, a lot of people, like I don't say a lot of people do this, but lacking humility, right? So uh, like at least demonstrate that you are humble in your approach when you have a question, or when you want to like basically argue with the interviewer on something. I'm using the word argue, but like say debate, but do that in a very humble way, because at the end the interviewer has slightly more edge because they are the one who are going to decide if you get in or not. So if you ask questions which are very direct, like ask it in a very humble way, and ask it because you really want to know the answer, not just because you want to, just for the sake of it. That's not really good. uh, and never be vague about the details that you're providing. Be very specific, like as I spoke, right? When you be vague, when you talk, like when you talk or beat around the bush, it's not good. It just gives an impression that he or she doesn't know the content that they want to talk, he or she doesn't know the project that they worked on, and that's why they do not know the details. So be specific, and be humble when it comes to like questions that you do not know the answer to. Just say I do not know. That's okay. We cannot know everything. So sometimes it's okay to say you don't know an answer to the question, and just be that. So that's about like common mistakes. But the most important thing is be honest, play on your strengths, and ask the right questions. Asking questions is also important at the end of the interview, because that just demonstrates that you're interested in the company and all that. So it's good to kind of do that regularly. So let's go ahead and talk about this star method. And this is very like it's a very a good way to approach behavioral questions or situational. So what I mean by behavioral questions is like open-ended questions where there are no specific answers. Like there is no right or wrong. For example, it can be like the question can be, describe a moment where you experienced failure and how did you react to it. So it's a very open-ended question. You do not know what you need to talk, but the way to approach these questions is using this method. So it's a really I really like it. I kind of do that on a lot of even I kind of use this even today. So S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for results. So if you're given a question like this, so first of all, what you need to talk about is the situation. Like you need to build a context, build a background. For example, when you're asked, like, describe a time when you failed, or when something didn't go the way you wanted to, and what did you do? So first, give out a situation. So say there was a time when we participated in an event, and uh, like we thought we'll do really well, and it didn't work out, something. So it's important to provide a context, and then you kind of like go to the task. So basically, what were your challenges at hand? So in a context, you identified that there was a problem. Say, for example, uh, the example here is like, our customers complain so and so isn't working well, etc. So that's a situation. So there is a problem in it, and then you need to highlight the tasks that you should have taken, or you should take to eliminate that. So describe those problems and the challenges. For example, you weren't able to handle so many customer complaints because it was just too much. We didn't have the right people, etc. So you have set up the context, and you have given, like, you have articulated what are the tasks that you had to do, and then following the task, you need to tell what action did you take specifically. So explain what you did, and then the end is how those actions helped. Like, so what it helps you to do is, like, it provides a context to the interviewer. It tells them, like, what was the situation at hand, and how did you act on it, and what happened after you acted on it. Like, a lot of time people forget talking about the results, like how it created an impact, but it's very important to tell, like, the result of that, of your actions. So you can always use this method even while you're writing or drafting your resumes. For example, just as I said, right, be very specific. So if you're a president of a club, for example, the RCB club here, and you want to write a few lines in your resume, so you use this method. Like, it's not to describe a situation or task, but you can always describe the action and result in your resume, to keep it brief. Like, you were able to manage a team of so and so, and in your when you took over as the president, you were able to achieve so and so results. And it can be anything, like, based on your profile, or but the key is, be specific and talk about the impact that you made. So that's the whole star method, and that you can definitely use it in your interviews. It's very helpful. I have used it a lot. So that brings me to the end of the whole content that I had here. Uh, like, I've just put in some key takeaways. Basically, we spoke about what a growth mindset is and why it's important. How do you, like, self-evaluate yourself? How do you understand what your key strengths are? How do you kind of plan and understand the core skills around it? And then how to use. We also spoke about, like, how to use specifics and effective writing to create a resume with an impact. uh, and and of course, I think we kind of also covered some of the interview aspects, like what should be done, what should not be done. uh, and at the end, I think overall, it's really about, like, learning. It's anything, like, these are, you can, the way in my company we quantify it is like behavioral skills and technical skills. Technical skills are the ones that we learn, like, through our education, or say, like, but behavioral skills are the one that we develop, like, over time. And some of them are inherent. Some of them, like, some of us are really good presenters, some of us are, like, really good at collaboration. So learn from each other. Learn these behavioral skills are very important in a corporate, I think, in general, like, in life. It's very important to develop the non-technical skills that our education system kind of fails to currently. But we need to do that consciously through the opportunities that we get. So that's really the message that I wanted to share with you all. Feel free to ask any questions, like, really anything. Just thank you. Thank you.
So if anyone has any questions, you can ask in the either in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Anyone with any questions, you can put up in the chat box. We'll read out your questions to the speaker.
I think no questions. Shall we proceed?
We'll wait for just 1 more minute. Take some questions.
If you want to reach me, just reach out to me if you have any questions that maybe just want to discuss one-on-one basis. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll try to answer your queries.
I think there are no questions, Mehul. We shall proceed.
Okay. Yeah, sure then.
Over to you, Vijayalakshmi.
Your presence here definitely enriched everyone in the session, sir. And for this, we remain grateful. Thank you, sir, for such an amazing session. Now I request Professional Service Director, Rotractor Nidhi Heda, to propose the word of thanks.
Okay, last but not the least, a simple thank you has its own magic as it warms the heart and create a movement of connection between two people. I, Retractor Nidhi Heda, Professional Service Director, would like to thank the speaker of our today's session, Mr. Giriraj Heda, for his informative session. I thank all the members who made their presence in today's session. Now, I would like to thank President, Secretary, and ZRR for having such an informative session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rotractor.